My name is Denise Kelly, and I was asked to share a little bit about reading recovery and, from my perspective, how I see it, its importance in a school district or a system. The history of my experience is I became a reading recovery teacher, was trained in that, and I worked with the most struggling students in first grade for 5 years. And during that time, I learned how important the processing is and how important that collaboration with the classroom teacher is and how we all work together and that nobody's an island to themselves. And after I had the privilege of teaching reading recovery for 5 years, then I also taught small groups during that time, small group instruction. Then I became a literacy coach for the building that I was in. And during that time, I even more saw the power of the classroom teacher working with the reading recovery people, the interventionist, the principal, the parents, how all of those systems together empowered the progress of that student. And that when a student is at risk for failure, for instance in first grade, how he doesn't immediately get cured, he gets better, but it's still important that everyone's working together as a team. After I was a literacy coach in a couple of elementary schools for approximately 5 or 6 years, then I was the district's literacy coach trainer, and I was able to oversee 22 different elementaries with their coaches in particular. And again, I got another lens on this whole systems development of how every coach impacts that classroom environment, and I looked at it from that level and was even more convinced of the power of each piece and the power of the theory in reading recovery. And then after that, I accepted the role that I'm in right now for our district, and so I'm able to overview and see sites that have no literacy coaches and then sites that do have literacy coaches. But again, once again, how important it is that every person plays his or her part, and that reading recovery, that theory and the training that comes behind that and the literacy processing understanding is so imperative for the leadership in our district. There are many people in leadership in our district now that have that background. And it's not reading recovery, it's not just those 4 students that you work with, it empowers you to see, in fact, impact that whole school site. And so the expense of reading recovery goes far beyond just the impact of what you're doing just that 1 year, and I feel like it develops future leaders. I also like to think of it as we all go to the doctor. Most of us do. And the doctor helps us when we are feeling sick, and most of the time we can go to that generalist or that internist and they can help us. And that's the classroom teacher. That's the core instruction. Then there are times, though, that we have something that the doctor just either doesn't have the expertise in or the specialization in an area, and we are sent to a specialist. And that specialist sees us, but it's short term. It's usually more expensive. And once he diagnoses or she diagnoses what we have, then we're sent back to our generalist typically to continue to monitor, and that's that classroom teacher. So I think if we start realizing that our interventionist, realizing more that our interventionist and our reading recovery people are like those specialists. They're short term, they're more expensive, but yet what would we do if we didn't have specialists to really zero in on things that sometimes we have in our bodies that our general internist wouldn't be able to diagnose? So I think if we kind of think of that analogy, it really helps us see the power of having reading recovery in a school district. Last of all, I just think none of us are an island in ourselves, and the more that we appreciate each other and each person does his or her part to make the system as strong as it can be, that's how we see these layers of support. The classroom instruction, which is like the generalist, doctor. Then we've got our interventionist and our reading recovery people, which are like the specialist. The more we understand, and we've got the family that comes in, and we've got the students, the more we understand that all of these parts have to be strong before the system can be healthy. That's the point that I wanted to make, and that I have seen firsthand the importance of every layer working together.